Welcome back. Continuing our discussion about the bombshell announcement for Cuban Americans that Elian Gonzalez has lost his appeal, the appeal filed on behalf of his relatives to try to keep him in the United States. His uncle, his great uncle, Lazaro Gonzalez, had filed a federal lawsuit trying to keep him in this country. A federal judge today said no. That asylum claim is not any good. With us is immigration attorney and also a councilman in the town of Englewood, New Jersey. Do I have that right? Michael Wilds? All right, I got that one right. Michael, thanks very much for coming in with us. Interesting development here. It's going to rattle the Cuban community in this country as well as obviously the folks in Cuba. Does this mean that Elian goes back, or are there other alternatives for his relatives who want to keep him here?
You get many bites at the apple, fortunately, in this country. Elian came to our shores many months ago and has been given a safe haven for all intents and purposes for the last few months. Right now, we're waiting to see why the judge decided this, whether or not the attorneys will appeal the case, and I expect that they will. Having spoken to his representative last week, his attorney indicated to me that they felt that they had a very, very solid asylum case. People argue he's not going to go back in fear. He is a hero in his country. And yet they have adequate proof to show that politically prominent children are often segregated and used as poster boys by Fidel Castro. So I believe we have not seen the end of this case, and they will go to the Court of Appeals.
So the fear on the part of the family in this country is that even though his father professes to want him back in Cuba, he's not going to be more or less allowed back to the custody of his father?
Well, I think that it might not be in his best interest for him to return to Cuba. We don't know ultimately whether or not the father acquiesced and allowed the child to come here in the first place. There's also testimony and proof that the father called the boy here in the United States even before the boy got to our shores. Maybe his mother, the boy's mother, that is, indicated to the father that she was going to take him. Maybe the father hasn't come to the United States all this time because he really doesn't want the boy back there. Maybe the best interest of this child is suited on U.S. soil. We have to at least get a day in court to see what's in his best interest. I'm shocked at the judge's decision.
You say that you get several bites at this apple. What is the next alternative for Elian's family in this country? Is it to appeal to a higher court, a circuit court perhaps?
To go to a circuit court of appeals and indicate to them that we feel that we can speak for the child. These matters are usually delegated to state courts to decide custody. Unless it abrogates a public policy, there's no reason why the court can't appoint another family member to speak for the child. And if they lose there, they can go to the United States Supreme Court, which I wouldn't expect this to happen if it does.
What if the father came to this country and said, of my own free will, I want to take Elian back to Cuba? At that point, is the argument over?
Tremendously different circumstance then. Nobody has conceded here that the boy doesn't belong with his father. We just don't understand why the father hasn't come to retrieve his son. Parents belong with their children. Children belong with their parents. But once he washes up on our shores and there are political circumstances playing in this case, as President Clinton is trying to leave a legacy, so to say, make overtures to Cuba and a communist state, we have to make sure that the boy won't be caught in its wake. And I think that would be a different circumstance. If the father came here and then proposed himself as an adequate father, I think that would be 100% different, and he should then take his son back.
But the obvious question is, why hasn't the father come to this country to take his son back?
If this were your child, would you not walk across 90 miles of ocean to hold your son after surviving such an ordeal? It's just remarkable that it's gone on this long without his presence here.
It's true that there is an especially thorny relationship between the United States and Cuba. If this were any other country involved other than Cuba, this case probably would have been solved long ago, don't you think?
Oh, of course. We have a very political-based immigration law depending on the relationship that we have, often through the State Department, with different nations. The law is different from the Middle East than it is to Haiti than it is to Cuba. We've been trying to crack the Cuban political enigma for so many years, and it was through this boy's shoulders that I think leaders of countries were trying to do that. But when all is said and done and all the cameras go, this young man will grow up within a tremendously different life if it's on your shores or if it's in Cuba. And that's the charge that these judges have to decide.
But if the shoe was on the other foot, if, say, a custody battle had gone bad in this country and a mother fled to Cuba with her little boy, the United States would be demanding that child be returned to a father in the U.S., don't you think?
Tremendous differences. I've represented women whose children have been taken to other countries. Patricia Rausch, I've appeared with here on your network, actually. These people have had to march themselves into foreign courts. Here you have the United States government conceding that the father belongs with the boy. We just don't know necessarily if the father's speaking the truth or if he's given enough political posture to speak what's in the best interest of his family. Let the father come here and then decide.
Michael Wilds, immigration attorney, thanks very much for being with us. Let's get the latest on Miami now from Mike Tobin, who is our reporter there. Mike?
Well, Judge Michael Moore, as you've mentioned, has rejected this lawsuit brought by Elian Gonzalez, Miami family, requesting political asylum for Elian Gonzalez. Appeals are expected. What remains to be seen is if Judge Moore will give the family time, give them a stay so they can appeal, or if the deportation proceedings will kick right into gear. Now, the Miami family left this morning for a meeting with lawyers. They're going to plan their next move. Elian went to school at about 7:30 this morning, but for the most part, things here in Little Havana are just picking up, mostly with the presence of media setting up, getting ready to cover the story. And that is our situation right now, live in Little Havana. I'm Mike Tobin for Fox News.
All right, Mike, thanks very much. We will get updated from you later throughout the day here on this latest change in the Elian Gonzalez case. Once again, a federal judge rules that the asylum hearing and the asylum request filed on Elian Gonzalez's behalf by his family in this country should be tossed out of court. We will keep you updated. Be back with more here on Fox News Live.